Hi, welcome. It's time for my town hall for today, and it's a little bit later today because I had some things I had to do in the morning. But, anyways, welcome. I'm here now, and hopefully you are too. My name is Susan Maud Buchser-Lahocki. I am a presidential candidate for the United States from the 2024 election. I have not conceded my candidacy yet because we know there's fraud in the system. So I found a lot of fraud, and Trump found a lot of fraud. And, back in 2020, he was complaining about the fraud, and yet nothing's changed in the way we counted our votes or voted. So if there was fraud in 2020, there was fraud in 2024. And the fact that he's not complaining about it anymore tells me that he's in on it. So that's a shame. It's not acceptable. But anyways, so I'm still campaigning, not really actively, but online, certainly. And I have some thoughts and concerns and various issues with what's going on. Apparently, this big bill that's in the Congress right now that Trump wants to sign on his birthday, I guess. I read something earlier. I don't know if it's true, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, she didn't read it entirely, so she's not sure what's in it. And then she was surprised at something that was in it, but she already voted to pass it. So this is, folks, the other part of the problem. Our representatives aren't representing us. They're just voting on anything that their party wants them to vote on. And that might not be what we want. So it's time to get rid of these frivolous people in office called House of Representatives and move to only a Senate, and the Senate will be in charge of formulating new bills. And then based on a certain point, we don't need big bills. We don't need things with like 20 different items in it. We need one item. We need it written well. We need to know the opinion of certain people, and then it needs to go to the public so the public can vote on it. A popular vote done on issues. And then if the people don't vote on it or don't take the time to vote, it's their fault if it gets passed. Not because some person in Congress is voting with the Republicans or the Democrats. That's just unacceptable. And it's unacceptable to put a lot of pork into these big, beautiful bills. So I haven't looked at it. I actually don't know exactly what's in it. It might be a good one. I don't know. But I haven't had time. So I don't know if any of you have had time, but if you have, you can put that in the comments. That would be great. So anyway, this is a problem because it's not only happening in Washington, but it's happening in your state too, with your own state legislature. They're just going in there and making all sorts of rules and regulations and laws that are, you just don't even know what they're passing. And they don't sometimes have your best interests at heart. So this is a problem. We got to get rid of also the local legislatures in all the states too. They also only need a Senate to put together the bills that then will be sent off to the people to vote on. It's called direct democracy, and it's what's needed. Our people are screaming for it. They don't feel heard, and they're not being heard. I'm not being heard. My vote was not counted in West Virginia in 2024. That is unconstitutional. My rights have been violated. And if your vote was not counted either, your rights have been violated too. So this is just unacceptable what the Democrats and Republicans are getting away with. They've stolen our country and they're running away with it. And it's not acceptable. So we have to do something. And I have this lawsuit pending. So I call upon the Supreme Court to act on my lawsuit. You know what I'm saying is true. It's unacceptable. Unacceptable. So that's where I am campaign-wise. Yeah, I'm not into these big bills that have hidden agendas. Not acceptable. Then what I want to talk about is something that I thought it was sort of finished and done with. So, but apparently it's not. So some of the people that are surrounding me are people who are trying to investigate if I am, I don't even know the word, when you like a forgerer. That's what it is, a forgerer. So I guess living in Europe opened the can of worms of this possibility. And so I've had people going ransacking through my things here in the US and in Europe looking for proof that I'm a forgerer. And I'm going to say it's probably the CIA, or it could be the FBI as well. And then it could also be, like if the Swiss have some sort of organization like that, it could be them, or it could be some sort of European one. But anyway, so let me backtrack now and tell you how I got to this point and why this is happening. I find it really strange because I thought this was all taken care of already. So, first off, I want to say that during my lifetime, the rules on copyright have changed quite a bit. So that's the first thing. And also, art materials have changed quite a bit. So when I was going to art school in New York, I was like at the third top art school in our country, and acrylic paint was not considered an artist medium. Acrylic paint was considered house paint. So nobody was doing acrylic paint in the 70s and 80s when I was doing my schooling. It was oil paint, it was watercolor, there was a little gouache, but not really, colored pencils, and then there's, of course, pen and ink, and then there was printmaking and screen printing, where you have, you put paint down. That's what Andy Warhol was doing. And you make t-shirts that way. So anyways, this was back in the 70s and 80s. And in the 80s is when I was in New York at art school there. And even at art school, we didn't really talk about copyright that much. There was like once mentioned that at the library there was a section where you could go and look at photos that were copyright free, but we didn't have the internet, we didn't have email even, we didn't have mobile phones, and everything was paste ups and mechanicals, was cutting paper out and gluing it down and making a photo. So, a lot has changed in the world, in the art world, and how art and advertising and magazines and everything was produced. And in fact, when Gates came out with his his software systems like Word and all of that with paste ups and mechanicals inside that were so easy, he displaced a lot of artists. And actually, this is where I'm going to say all that money that he has is money that should have gone to artists who were doing paste ups and mechanicals, all the graphic designers that were put out of business. That's where that money was supposed to go. And he stole it pretty much from all the artists. But now he looks like, hey, I'm this billionaire, and what he should do is start an art foundation and help the artists that he displaced so many years ago. So anyway, that's my opinion on that. But so here I am at Parsons, and they're not really teaching us how to be artists at all. They just train you how to draw and paint. And I learned how to do oil painting, which I don't like very much. It's very smelly and messy, and I'm not really an oil painter. And so as soon as I got out of Parsons, I pretty much stopped doing oil painting. And I moved to acrylic because it was starting, but it wasn't considered a real art medium yet. But I wasn't, how can I say this? I went through school as an illustrator. I wanted to go for fine art, but my parents were against that. They were not going to pay the tuition for me to get a fine art degree. They did not agree with a lot of the artists out there. I think Mapplethorpe was one of them, and I can't remember. There was a woman who was also popular, but she was pushing buttons, and so they were not going to pay for that. And I didn't have the money to pay all of it. I did do work study, and I did have to take out loans. And eventually I paid back all my loans. But the real point is, it was a struggling time financially, getting through there and getting everything taken care of. But at the end, they had this one class during our senior year, which taught us how to put a portfolio together, but it was sort of too late. And anyway, it just didn't cover all the things I felt was necessary. And then we were told to join this thing and that thing, but not what to do there. And so it was very, and this is the problem that I still see happening today in the United States and even in other countries. People who go into higher education without having done a trade beforehand, they don't know how the business really works. And, I'm one of them. So, I had nobody teaching me. I had to learn everything on my own. And it's been a real struggle. So, what I will say for anyone out there talking about forgeries or curious about forgeries, Parsons, one time, I don't know when it was, maybe in my junior year, we were doing, I think, illustrating the 7 deadly sins or something like that, or I can't remember what the real assignment was, but I don't know if we had to do all 7 or just one, but we were supposed to pick a genre that was out there, one of the art history time periods, and do a piece. At least that's sort of what I remember. And I chose vanity as the one that I wanted to do. And then when I did vanity, I decided to do Picasso. I decided to do it like a cubistic Picasso style. So I have this reclining woman looking at herself. She's got a mirror in both hands, and she's sort of, being vain. And it's mine. It's not a Picasso. It's mine. So it was an assignment in school. So anyway, that's where, things were going. So and I need to backtrack a second. So the freshman year of Parsons School of Design in New York, which is where I went, um, we had a year of art history, and I loved it. I thought it was great. I knew a lot of artists. Before that, one of my favorite was Peter Paul Rubens. I liked the Renaissance period and whatever art like that. And then I got into some of this modern art, and that's when I really wanted to go into, fine art, modern art. But like I said, my parents were not going to pay for that. So I had no choice. I had to get some sort of degree. So I went for one that we agreed upon, which was illustration. And so I learned more about illustrators there. Like, I think one of them was Marshall Arisman and Peter Max and Sue Coe and, various artists. And then I studied with, I can't remember a lot of, I can't remember. Anyway, I had a lot of illustrator influence. And so, I didn't know a lot about fine art artists whatsoever. And it wasn't until later, until I got to Switzerland, that I started getting into the fine art finally, and then I discovered what I discovered. But anyway, it was a good art history class, and one of my favorite art movements was Dadaism. So here I am, trying to be an artist in New York, not knowing at all how it works. I studied illustration, but I wanted to do the art scene, but I didn't know how to get in the door, and I didn't know what you do, and I knew what little bit from my mother, that you make slides and you enter competitions, and so anyways, nothing was working. Of course, I spent a lot of money on slides. That's a way that you record artwork back then, and then you would send it off, and then maybe you get the slides back and maybe not, and it was a nightmare time to be an artist for sure. Anyways, but after some time, I had to, of course, have many other jobs, and I got into banking, and then during that period of time, I was, working during the day in banking, and in the evening, I was trying to find my art style, my voice, my art voice. And nothing was really satisfying. And so, I sort of lived life, did work by the day. In the evening, I did art or life, and time passed. And then luckily, I was laid off actually by this one bank, and they gave me a good layoff package, so I was happy. So I took the time and I did create some art that actually looks like it belongs to one person, rather than do like this work 1 year and this one another, because you don't have time to, get your work together. So this is how being an artist works in the United States, first off. They kick you out the door, they don't give you all the information, and they watch you flounder, and it's terrible. And that's what they do at universities all over the country, and they're still doing it that way. It was done that way in the 80s, and it's still done that way today. So shame on the universities and the colleges for doing that to their students. It's not acceptable. But anyway, so I did some animal scenes, and then I had this sort of vision of sort of like an aura of the fact of history, your experiences, and how they make you who you are. So then I started doing these people with auras around them, and yeah, sort of drawing, painting things. It was kind of surreal. It was basically, illustrative, but surreal for sure. And then what happened? Then a little bit more time passed, and I met this nice guy who was from Switzerland, and he said, "Well, I don't want to live in New York. Do you want to come and make a family with me in Switzerland?" And I said yes. So then we started our life together in Switzerland, and there I brought my art, and because I was over 30 when I went, it was difficult to get into education. So I couldn't get like any more. I couldn't get a master's degree or anything. Plus, they didn't really have like a good master's program in art at the time. I think now they do, but they didn't at the time. And uh, yeah, so anyway, I started back into ceramics, which was one of my first loves, and then I started doing some work on the side. For whatever reason, a lot of people think that if you're an artist, you can do logos and you can do advertising and you can do all this stuff, but it's not what everybody does. And yes, I can do it, but it's not my thing, and I actually don't do it. And I've had people want that from me in Switzerland over the time that I was there. And, I just, yeah, I tried. I'm not very good at it anyway. So, yeah, you need somebody who is specialized in logo making or um, graphic design. That's not what I studied. So, slowly I got my work together, and I decided to have I don't think I did a one woman show. I was in a group show because I was joined the American Women's Club, and there they had like an art group, and we would give ourselves assignments and then come back and show our work and whatnot. And then we had a show. So I put up some artwork, and I sold like one or two pieces, but I didn't make a lot of money. I think I made like $500. So, I didn't know what to be selling my artwork at anyways, because I had never really sold anything. I had never been anywhere. I was trying to, when I was fresh out of university, I was trying to get a children's book published, which didn't go well. And whatever, it's a nice one, but it's not very interesting actually. So eventually, I I was part of this club and part of this art group, and we had an art show. And I'm trying to think. I think I even eventually had my, but I don't think that was till later. Yeah, I was part of a group show, and then I got busy. Then it was September 11th, and my daughter was born. And I mean, first my son was born, and he died. Then my daughter was born, and then she got leukemia, and then I had a lot going on that I just couldn't do art and be a mother at the same time. It was just not working. So I had to put that aside, and just focus on being a mother, which was fine. I didn't like the circumstances, but whatever. I made it work. We made it work, and it worked. Our daughter is alive and doing just fine now, and we're all older and wiser. So that's how it goes. Then when she was finishing up her treatment, I started to dabble back in the arts, and I was playing around with maybe should I get a studio. I had a room at the house, but it wasn't very inspiring. And so I finally got involved with a friend, and we got a studio together in a nearby town. And at first, I was just happy to have a space and to be able to do something, but I still didn't have that style that would say, "Oh, that's a Susan," or "That's a Maud." I had already taken on the name Maud at one point. It's my middle name, and I kept toying with it throughout my artwork. Once I reached about I think 1985 is when I realized I had this really cool middle name that I could combine with an art, and then it's modern art. And so I've been sort of bringing it in and out, back and forth for some time. And what happened was I was getting back into art, but I realized here I am in the middle of Europe with all this art history around me, and it was exciting for me. And I was living just north of Zurich, and Zurich is the home of Dadaism, so I was really happy to be there. And it's funny, uh, Marcel Duchamp is one of my favorite Dadaists, and his ready-mades were and constructions were very interesting and whatnot, and inspiring for me. This is not any of my constructions, or my ready-mades were never approached as, oh, is that a Marcel Duchamp, or is that a Susan Maud Buchser, or a modern art? So for that, there's never been a question. So, anyways, just I had to put that out there. But what ended up happening is I started writing an article in the Round Robin, which is a book that, like a monthly or a bi-monthly newsletter that goes out in Zurich to the American women who are in the club. And I wanted to get back into the arts, so I wanted to delve into what museums were around, and what's the history, and what artists are popular there. And because there's a whole different group of artists that are popular in Switzerland and in Europe than are in the US. So moving back and forth and learning my new area of art world, I was investigating. And then our family decided to go on vacation to New York City. I don't remember exactly when it was. It was probably about 10, 12 years ago. And I was looking for things to do while we were there, Broadway theater, whatever. And then I noticed there was this art class that you could take. It was just a 3-hour class. I mean, it wasn't really a class. It was a meetup sort of thing where you go and you can drink wine and paint. And my husband and I, we liked wine, and my daughter was too young to drink wine, but she liked to paint, and I thought it was a great way to spend an evening together, the three of us. And during the vacation, I think there were 2 paintings I was interested in painting while we were there. Because I really liked the concept behind it. The organization was called Painting Lounge, and it was in Brooklyn, and they were sort of promoting famous artists throughout history. And they did their own version of a Picasso, or their own version of a Cezanne, or their own version of a Monet. And it was a guided art experience. And so I liked the idea. I wanted to go and try it out because it was something I was thinking of bringing to Switzerland, because there wasn't anything like that then. And Swiss people like wine, and they like to go out. So I thought it was a great idea. So anyway, we went and we tried it, and we all painted this Picasso because that was what was going on the day when we were there. They have every day they have a new focus. and it's a 3-hour sort of paint by guide painting. And they tell you do this or do that or whatever. So anyway, it was fun, and we all came out with relatively reasonable looking Picassos. And it was one of his works that we were just duplicating. So it was fun. We had a good time, which was the concept, to have fun. And then I got back and I came up with my concept. I called it Just Paint. And in the slogan, I said, yes, you can, because a lot of people don't realize that they can paint and that they can paint well, and all they need is a little space and encouragement and a way. And sometimes maybe, a little wine might help too. So I advertised and I advertised and I advertised and I advertised and I advertised in the evening. And by the way, when you advertise, you have to book too. So I had to book and pay for rooms that were never used. So I booked and I booked and I advertised, and nobody was showing up. And, I didn't have it. It wasn't like every day like this place. And I did it in different locations to try to reach different people. But nobody was signing up, and I did it also at different hours and for kids. And anyway, so it was starting. I was getting into this whole art history, and for me, I had to make samples so I could show people what it is that they're going to be doing. So I had to make photographs and show step by step how it's done and put this online. So I did. And so I painted, I don't know, about 5 to 10 different artworks pretty quickly, because they're only supposed to take 2 hours to do. So I had to pick art that was easy to paint, and then also pick art that was pleasing, that people might like to paint. And then I had to show like the steps and work it out and everything. So so I had about 10 different artist works that I did. They were all done in a medium that they did not do them in. So back in the day, artists were using oil paint or watercolor, or what they were doing was doing printmaking. And this is how things were done back in the day. So today we have a whole different way of doing all sorts of things, but one of the things that was being that's new is acrylic paint. And these classes were done with, Switzerland has a very good acrylic paint company called Lascaux. And it's named after the French cave of the original cave art. And anyway, Lascaux, I chose them because I knew it would be a good investment in paint anyways. If things don't work out, I'll need a good quality paint to do art myself, or if I give other classes or whatever. So I still have the paint because I hardly had any acrylic painters, and I eventually had to introduce gouache as a medium, which again, a lot of these artists weren't using gouache. It wasn't that famous, or if anything, they added egg to it, and then it was egg tempera. But I don't know how to do egg tempera because I didn't study fine art. I studied illustration, and so I knew gouache. And so I had people using gouache for creating artworks on paper for people who have a sensitivity to chemicals. So I was again using gouache from Lascaux, because again, I wanted to provide my artists, if I had any, with good quality products to use. But again, I didn't have so many. I mean, I did. So what eventually happened is I have a friend who, and this is why I ended up doing these other classes that were for people with a chemical sensitivity, is because of her. She wanted to get together with her friends and do some painting. And they didn't want to do it at night with wine. They wanted to do it in the morning with coffee. So, I set up the first one and I was ready. I was all set. It was my first real adventure into this. And I'm extremely shy, or I used to be extremely shy. And I know a lot of you might have problems understanding that, but trust me, I purposely got sick so I wouldn't have to be a munchkin in the Wizard of Oz in our high school play that we did, or junior high, whenever it was. So I am extremely shy. Anyway, so I was all ready, all set up, booked the place, advertised it, and so the first one with gouache, 2 people showed up, and everybody finished the artwork on time, or pretty much on time, I think, and then we could go. Then the next one, there was a larger group. There were like 5 of us, and so it was a lot of work getting it together, and all these 5 ladies showed up, and I was expected to give my speech, and I couldn't. So I was just too nervous. So I didn't give the speech, and I got everybody working. And then I slowly introduced what we were doing. And in that one, we were doing a Van Gogh. I don't remember. I think it was Starry Night, but I'm not 100% sure, or maybe this other painting. And I know a lot of people like Van Gogh, and it's fun. It's a good exercise, and it works out well with acrylic paint because you can get the thickness that he had, and so you can get to understand his work as well as, have some freedom too. And everybody's work developed at different paces, but the concept was in 2.5 hours, because that's actually one of the quicker ones, you were supposed to be done and ready to take your product home at the end. And one woman did it. One woman was done, and she finished, and she never came back. But then the other ladies, a lot of them didn't finish, and especially this one friend of mine who has the disability, she could not finish it. So, and I think it took her like a whole maybe 8 hours to complete it, because she has a lot of pain and she couldn't work so quickly. So then it got weird, because then the whole concept of how then the concept changed. It was no longer this drink wine or drink coffee and paint with your friends. It became this weird sort of everybody's doing something different, and the whole idea of you go home and you have a finished product wasn't really happening. And this is, I think, where confusion came in, because then it started to feel like I was trying to teach people how to forge artworks, basically. And that was not at all the concept. The concept was to come and have a good time with your friends and go home. But some of the ladies, I think they wanted art classes, and some of the ladies just wanted to come and chat. And so it was really hard to get to know what was expected. But then I think, how can I say this? This went on for about, I'm going to say, a year. And I had people doing their children or their husbands, or doing self-portraits and things of that nature. And we were just always staying in gouache because of the chemical sensitivity of this one friend. And she was, moving forward too. And then finally we got to a point where I think everybody still wanted to get together, but they had done all their kids and all of this stuff. So then we moved on to, I had like a book or something of images that they could choose from. And so it was someone decided on a Picasso. And then suddenly, as others were still working on their children or husbands or whatever, suddenly new people started coming into the group, and they seemed to all be lawyers. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, what's going on here? So then I realized, well, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I've crossed the line somewhere. And so then I realized that maybe uh, I had infringed on copyright. So I called up, or I sent emails to some of these artists that I had in my book of things to do, and they said yes. So definitely, like from Keith Haring, I got a no, please stop. We don't want you to. You don't have permission to do what you're doing. And Andy Warhol also said that. And I can't remember. There were a few others that I had sent off emails to. So anyway, so slowly it turned out that, I didn't have permission. And luckily, the only one who did, so I think it was a Keith Haring was probably me. And I did it sort of in his style, but my original artwork. So there is a dog that I did that has my family in it and my dogs and everything like that. So I definitely didn't sign it Keith Haring. I don't have it with me right now, so I can't tell you how I signed it, but it could be seen as a Keith Haring type of art. But again, it's not a forgery. I'm not copying what he did. It's in gouache, so it's not at all his medium. And anyway, so like I said, when I was doing the classes, I was doing famous artists. I was trying to make sure to not use the mediums that they are known for using. I wanted to get the effect of it, but without actually using the mediums. And so that's what I saw these other wine and paint groups were doing. So anyway, yeah. So as soon as I started hearing back that they said don't, please don't, it was too late. I had already scheduled to do a workshop at the American Women's Club for their workshop week, and I decided, well, I'll just go forward with what I have and let's see what happens. But I had exactly at that time already contacted these places and said, look, is this allowed? And they told me no, and then I was stopping. So anyway, as it was unwinding and I was actually starting to find my own voice too, this is exactly when I started collecting smiles and doing smile clouds and smile works, smile projects. And it started with the first one. I was at this business fair, I guess, in a town. There was supposed to be 30,000 people at it. I think eventually 20,000 showed up. About 10,000 walked by my art stall, and my goal was to get as many smiles and build this smile cloud against hate and bullying and issues like that, hate between people. And so that was my first smile cloud. I believe that was 2015, maybe 2014, 2015, something like that. And so I did also have some Just paints there, and a few people came and painted some famous people that I had prepared for people to do, like a Lady Gaga or something like that. So and then they would give me their smiles, and so that's sort of where it was, what was going on, and how it was happening. So I was trying to create this event concept, but it failed miserably, and eventually I stopped. And I still have a lot of the product that never got used, so I have to use it now in some way. But anyways, that's not for you to worry about. That's for me. But then, like I said, suddenly in this other class that, or group or whatever meeting, I don't know what you want to call it, event, at this other painting event, like I said, there were all these lawyers showing up, and then I was like, oh, okay, well, let's see what's going on here. And I don't know what they were really there for, what they wanted. I got the feeling that they were concerned about what I was doing, and I just wanted to let them know that I'm just trying to follow the rules. So if I'm breaking a rule, just tell me and I can correct it. So nobody told me anything. But eventually the group moved on and went and did some other things because, like I said, they had painted all their kids. And so we all sort of went on. And then I decided, this is not where I want to spend my focus, and it's much too costly. I was not making any money on it. And so I said, it's time to stop this. So I stopped it. Uh, and that's what happened. Then I moved studios from Huri in Switzerland to Dubendorf, and I guess in that process, some other people saw these paintings that I had of, famous works, and I guess that triggered a whole new group of people to report me that I'm possibly doing fraud or I don't know what. And so they didn't know the Just Paint story, they just knew what they saw. And so anyway, I moved then to Dubendorf, and I was there for 4 years, and then I moved from there to where I am now in Etzgen. And in that process, again, more people have now seen these works, and I got a whole new bunch of people coming after me trying to prove that I'm creating fraudulent art and selling it and all this stuff. So I just want to make this clear that I don't do that. I made these works for a specific purpose. I wanted to show people how to do this art in this event with wine concept, which never took off when I was doing it. And to introduce people, because the real point was I met so many Swiss people who had no idea who these artists were. And they're really great artists and deserve recognition. And so I was trying to enlighten the people around me to art and, just artists. And that's why I chose to do sort of art history themed concepts. But yeah, it didn't work out. So I still have some of the artwork, of course, and some I've used in some of my own works together to create female stories or something like that. So most of them are now in use in something that I've done. But yeah, they're there. I'm pretty sure they have my name on them somewhere, probably on the back. And yeah. So, but if you ever come across like a Picasso that's an acrylic, that's not a real Picasso. If you come across a Van Gogh that's in acrylic, it's a fake. It's not him. It's he didn't have acrylic paint back then. So, yeah. If there is anyone out there who feels that I owe them something for promoting an artwork that maybe they own, or that work for somebody who owns that artwork, feel free to contact me at my website. Susan4USA.com. That's Susan, the number 4, USA.com. I am available, and my intention was never to infringe on anyone's copyright. And my concept was to promote art and the art history that I knew, and to promote these artists. So if that goes against your concept, feel free to contact me. Send me an email, and we can work it out. That's all I can say. My intention was to show people that they can paint, because again, a lot of Swiss people are nervous and they don't have the confidence. And so if you just introduce them to some concept, they can develop and break out of their shell, like I did with having difficulty speaking in public. So, I have always had this issue. And then suddenly I started going to my Unitarian Universalist organization in Basel. And every time I would walk in the door for a service, they would hand me a piece of paper to read. And I'd be like, but wait, I can't read, I have dyslexia. And they said, it's okay, just read it. And so, and every time I would go, it would get longer and longer and longer. And then I started getting more comfortable. And then at some point, I learned how to get into my head and have my thoughts hang together on a subject, and then I could bring it out. And that's when I realized, hey, wow, this is great. Because I tried Toastmasters once, and I did all right, but not like this. And I was amazed at my own ability to stand in front of people and talk. And I mean, I've always known that for me, it takes practice. You start and you're going to make mistakes, and then you keep trying and you keep trying and you keep trying until you get there. And so I knew, there was a possibility that I could be a public speaker, but I didn't realize that I could do it so well. And so, anyways, it was Unitarian Universalist of Basel. Thank you very much for helping me learn that important skill, and I love it. Yeah, I'm much more comfortable. I mean, I'm not 100%, but I'm much more comfortable than I used to be. And yeah, so this is where my focus is now. I've totally stopped my Just Paint work, although I might say I might bring it back, but more as just a creative hours where I have a lot of art supplies that are just sitting there, and I'd much rather have you and me get together and create some art of our own. So I might start having these little creative hours where people can come in and sort of just do what they want. I have canvases, I got all sorts of stuff, paper or whatever. I have really great acrylic paint, and I have really great gouache that needs to be used. So, and I have a big art studio, but I need to clean it up a little bit. So hopefully in the fall, I might be able to host an event at my studio in Edsket. I know it's not near Zurich, so you guys might have to drive out to me, but I'll say, I can take up to like 5 people, and we can open a bottle of wine and have some fun. Or we don't have to open a bottle of wine, we can just have some fun. Have some creative time. So this is something I'm going to start, and I'll probably bring the name back, Just Paint, and I might even still use the slogan, yes, you can. Because I think still a lot of Swiss people and a lot of people in general are afraid to break out of their box. And I think now that I've got more art experience again behind me, because that's all I've been doing now for the last 12 years, 13 years. I feel more confident myself. Now I can stand in front of a group of people, 5 people or more, and talk. So, this is what I didn't have before. And maybe that's also why it felt like something was wrong, like something was up, or I don't know. So, anyway, so I want to, I guess, end this here. And if you have any questions, you can contact me. You can put it here. But definitely contact me if you feel like I've overstepped my bounds. I've done something wrong. Please let me know, because that was absolutely not my intention. I specifically made things the way I did so that it's clear that these are student, at best, student works, or whatever. I mean, the last thing I will say is that my understanding is back in the Renaissance, that period of time, whatever, artists would go to town to learn the trade of being an artist. And they would study the masters. So they would exactly copy what their master had produced or what other masters had produced. And so they were copying other art. So that was a little bit to the concept behind mine. It's probably what the painting lounge in New York was also had probably in their head, that it's sort of like this concept of honoring the artist before learning their technique and going forward. But of course, in 2 or 3 hours you cannot learn a technique. So this was more a get together with friends, have this little team event, and then go off and you have your painting to enjoy. But like I said, because of the abilities of the people, only one woman really officially made it, completed the project on time, or whatever, however you want to say it. And then the concept just fell apart from there, because it just wasn't, it wasn't really, the concept. So, and for any of those students who were there, I don't think I've ever really said this. So now you know what maybe might have been going on. But I think probably the CIA and the FBI have been now investigating me and trying to find out, am I selling these fraudulent works, and am I getting paid millions of dollars for them? So the answer is no. I still have all of them. I have not sold any of them. They were never intended to be sold. They were the sample artwork to show people what's possible. So, yeah. But anyway, so if you want to talk to me about it, go to my website, susan4usa.com. That's Susan, the number 4, USA.com, and you can find out what you can get answers for your questions. Okay, so that is my own personal life story that's going on. And then we already talked about this bill that Trump has put together, that I guess he wants to sign on his birthday. And is there anything else that we need to talk about? I don't know. I guess food is getting through now to Gaza, but how many people died between that? I just, my question is there are vacation packages going on in Israel right now. You can fly to Israel on vacation, and so I just, it's a weird region. I don't have the intel that the president does, so I can't say anything, but I just wanted to put that out there. Yeah. All right. So I guess that's it. So I wish you a nice day wherever you are. Thank you for stopping by. And if you want to get involved with my art events, I like I said, in the fall in Etzkin in Switzerland, I will be having some where you can come, and I don't know how I'm going to do it yet. Maybe it's pay one price and then you get a certain size canvas, and then you can just, if you want to, make it 3-dimensional, you can. If you want to make it 2-dimensional, you can. If you want to do something specific like paint your child or your dog, you can. If you want painting lessons, I suppose I could give them now because I have more experience now. And I don't know. Let's see what the possibilities are. So, yeah, so I'll be starting up Just Paint again, but in a different format. And yeah, and then in Switzerland, I'm working, or in the US, sorry, I'm working in West Virginia, I'm working more with nature, doing nature forms and stuff. In Newburgh, I have a little enchanted forest down there. And then in Core, which is where I live, that's more, I don't know what it is, storage right now. But anyways, things are going to be happening soon too, where I'm inviting you, Mr. and Mrs. Public, to join me and be creative. So, yeah, that's the next steps. All right, so on this note, I wish you a nice day wherever you are. Thank you for stopping by. If you want to know more, it's Susan4USA.com, Susan, the number 4, USA.com. Bye.